What's up and welcome to another episode of Gizmo Slip Tech. Today we're taking a look at the Oculus Quest 2. This is my detailed review of it after 100+ hours of use. I have been using this every day for like over 2 hours on average since I got it. Now the Oculus Quest 2 is a headset that people either swear by, saying it's the very best, most versatile headset that you can buy, or it's an absolute heaping pile of trash because it's made ultimately by Facebook or Oculus, but it's really owned by Facebook. And as you know, Facebook is trying to collect all the data it can on us so it can monetize us to the best of its ability. So where do I fall in all of this? Do I recommend buying a Quest 2? Is it worth the privacy invasion? Is it actually a fully featured, fully capable headset compared to the Oculus Quest 1? Without further ado, let's dive into it. Here we go. Now I gotta give a big shout out to our sponsor for this episode, Into the AM. This is one sick shirt. It's a tree with DNA, a mix of like science and art. I love that. They have lots of cool designs on their website, and I gotta say, these t-shirts, when I initially got them in, I was really impressed with the quality of the fabric. It's kind of a little thicker quality fabric of a t-shirt, and then the actual print on the shirt seems like a higher quality print that will probably last through more washes and drying cycles than your average t-shirt. So if you're looking for some quality made, nice t-shirts at a reasonable price, go check it out. There's a link in the description down below. They have a sale going on for the next few days. Totally worth picking yourself up some nice shirts. So how does the Oculus Quest 2 stand up versus the competition? Well, simply put, the number one reason to buy the Quest 2 or Quest 1 really is because it has a fully standalone VR headset. You don't need anything else besides this and the controllers, and you can have a great time in VR. Virtually all the other headsets out there require you to plug your VR headset into a PC to stream the high quality visuals from your powerful graphics card on your PC. Now, since the vast majority of people do not have powerful gaming PCs, that means they will never be able to enjoy a PC VR headset. But they can pick up a Quest 2 and have a fully immersive VR experience. Now, when you use a VR headset, you can have inside-out tracking, like we have cameras here on the Quest 2 that track the controller movements, and they can also track hand movements as well. Setting up the Quest 2 is very simple. All you have to do is find the ground level and then outline the play area where it's safe to play. Now, personally, what I do is I mark the play area that's actually much bigger around me because I don't like having the guardian walls appearing in the middle of the VR, but I'm just very, very aware of my VR space. Now, this has led to some injuries, but I think it allows for a much better overall VR experience. Now, if you take a system like the Valve Index, which is arguably the best competitor to the Quest 2, you have to have those external sensors, which is a more complex setup, and it'll run you $1,000 for a full bundle, which is a lot of money compared to a $300 fully complete standalone setup that's just easier to set up and take with you anywhere you want to go. Now, how does the Quest 2 stack up with the Quest 1? Well, if you look at the specs, the Quest 1 has a resolution of 1440 by 1600 per eye, but it is an OLED display. The Quest 2 has a resolution of 1832 by 1920. So that means the Quest 2 has 52% more resolution to work with than the Quest 1. I know it doesn't seem like the numbers are that different, but when you multiply them out, the difference in numbers become exponential. Therefore, small differences matter a lot more when it comes to resolution. In addition, we have a 90 Hz refresh rate on the Quest 2 versus a 72 Hz refresh rate on the Quest 1. Now, keep in mind that not all VR games on the Quest 2 will be in 90 Hz. That's going to be up to developers, and honestly up to Oculus also allowing the developers to turn those features on and off. And the tricky part about the 90 Hz versus 72 Hz is that if you enable 90 Hz in all the games, what you're going to have is significantly reduced battery life because the GPU in the Quest 2 is going to have to work a lot harder to push that kind of frame rate out to the system. And this is a battery powered system, fully standalone, so you might go from 2.5 hours of battery life to less than 2 hours of battery life if you change just the refresh rate on a game. Now, when it comes to the processor, we're dealing with Snapdragon Snapdragon 835 on the Quest 1 and a Snapdragon XR2 on the Quest 2. And keep in mind, the XR2 is dramatically more powerful for both video rendering and just general usage. So that means the Quest 2 has a lot more potential hardware power, which honestly is not even being harnessed that much yet, aside from the resolution increase, because we're dealing with 52% more resolution, which means it's literally 52% more powerful just to run the same frame rate and the same exact games. So the Quest 2 does have a massive visual improvement due to its processor, but this is not even the limit here. Like, there's a lot more I think the XR2 processor can add to the VR experience, but that's going to again be up to developers, and you have to trade off with increased graphics with reduced battery life. Now, I was actually playing one of these VR games and I happened to play a match with a developer of the game, and he was explaining that Oculus is not allowing them to make these features user options. Like, if the user could switch between 72 Hertz and 90 Hertz, it would be nice because then they can choose would they rather have more battery life or a faster refresh rate. And you got to keep in mind that a higher refresh rate is going to make a bigger difference in titles with fast action. Think like Beat Saber, when you're swinging the sword so fast, you got to track all these things coming at you, and you got to swing. If you have 90 Hertz, it does add to the experience more than other games that are slower paced, that the difference in refresh rate just doesn't make as big of a difference. Basically, what I would love to see is that developers and Oculus will allow us to choose whether we want to be in 72 Hertz or 90 Hertz for each specific game. Would we rather have the battery life, or would we rather have the refresh rate? And I think I would generally pick refresh rate most of the time, unless I knew that I wasn't going to be able to charge the Quest 2 for a while. The key to any gaming system, whether it's a console, a PC, or a VR system, is honestly the games. When I started using my Quest 1, which I have right here, I have a third-party head strap that basically zooms in on your head there. When I started using the Quest 1, I was impressed with a handful of games. There's a lot of really cool VR experiences on the Quest 1, but realistically, there was only a handful of VR titles that were truly compelling to me, and the main one really was Beat Saber when it was initially released. Well, since then, we've had over a year of development of games, and it has really paid off. We have so many great titles now available on the Oculus Quest store. I wanted to talk about a handful of these, my favorite picks so far that I have played. First of all, my number one game is Blast On. Blast On is this one-on-one competitive PvP shooter dodgeball game. Basically, it's a one-on-one experience where you have a set of weapons that will spawn. You grab the weapons, you shoot them at your opponents. The bullets travel fairly slow, allowing you to dodge the enemy bullets, and they can also kind of dodge your bullets too. And there's all these different strategies. You can set up traps on certain parts and then shoot them faster on this side, and you've got lasers, and you've got these big glowing orb ball things that you have to dodge, and you got grenades you can throw, and you can time, and you can counter, and you have shields, and it's just a really complex, really satisfying game to improve at and get better at. It's my favorite PvP-oriented game on the Quest, and I am a PvP-oriented player in general, and that makes this my number one game for the Oculus Quest. I highly recommend it. It's only $10. Super great game. My number two game is Population 1. This is a battle royale, again, a competitive shooting game, which not everyone's a competitive shooter type person, but I am. So this is my number two game. We've got excellent design and implementation here. You can climb on anything. You can fly off structures. You can build your own walls. You can climb up those walls. You can use snipers, shotguns, assault rifles. There's a variety of weapons. It's a really well developed game, but I do wish it had higher player counts inside of each individual match, because there's only a total of 18 players in one match. Overall, Population 1 is a complete battle royale experience, and it's the best one I think so far for VR. And honestly, playing it on the Quest is probably the best way to play it, because you're constantly turning and moving around, and wanting to climb things and get down low and stand up. There's a lot of nice things about having that be on the Quest. Highly recommend Population 1. Number 3, we've got 11 table tennis. I'm a huge fan of table tennis in real life. I used to play every single day at my old job. My manager and I would just go crazy playing ping pong. One probably should have been working a little bit more, but it was great. It was awesome. It was a great bonding time, and it was super fun. This game translates the real world game and the skills you have in the real world into the game so well that like the same mistakes I make in real life table tennis, I make in the game. Like the same types of spins, the same cuts that they say they fall short on the net. You wouldn't think that it'd be possible to translate the game so well into VR, but it is incredible. The other great thing about this game is that their matchmaking for multiplayer is simple, it's quick, and it works really well. You have voice chat, so it's a great way to meet people and just socialize and have fun. My number 4 game, we have Pistol Whip. This is a musical shooting game where you dodge incoming bullets while at the same time taking out bad guys and whipping pistols into bad guys to kill them. It's a super fun arcadey musical rhythm game that I highly recommend checking out. Number 5, Until You Fall. This is a roguelite RPG sword slasher game where you have to time your sword strikes and blocks to be able to counter your opponents. It can get very intense and very satisfying when you survive these intense moments where you've timed your swords just right and managed to take down the enemies. I highly recommend checking that out, and it's a very good implementation on the Quest 2 in particular. There's a ton of other VR games out there like Moss, Beat Saber, and of course these are just the games available through the Oculus store, not to mention all the games that you can get for PC VR and stream using a USB cable to your headset. Alternatively, you can use Virtual Desktop to wirelessly stream games from your gaming PC to your headset. And yes, this does work really well as long as you have a strong Wi-Fi connection with a high enough bandwidth and a good gaming PC. If you have a good enough connection, it feels like you're actually running the game on the headset or you're directly wired in, but you're actually fully wireless, allowing you to have more immersion, more movement while playing VR, which I absolutely love. Look at this game of Half-Life Alyx. The graphics are insane. It's really impressive, really immersive, and that's the great thing about wirelessly streaming these games is if you have a good connection, if you have a good PC, it really doubles or triples the library size of your VR games that you can play. But of course, you'll need a gaming PC to be able to do that. Now, because these Quest games are stripped down to be able to run on a smartphone processor and GPU, sometimes the graphics are not as high as on the PC version. I'd say most of the time there are reduced textures and reduced post-processing effects, but the good news here is that the core gameplay remains the same, making the experience still just as fun, in my opinion, while at the same time allowing you to have the truly wireless freedom to be able to turn completely around and look up and down and dive up and down without running into a cable or tripping over it or getting caught up in it, which happens all the time with a wired VR headset. Now, I do want to mention that Facebook recently started requiring users to use a Facebook account to log into the Oculus store to be able to basically get started using their Oculus Quest 2. There was a lot of lashback against Facebook for this fact. So what do I think about this? Here's my thought. Facebook has owned Oculus since 2014. If you were okay buying an Oculus Rift or an Oculus Quest before this point, they have all the data that they were ever going to collect on you anyway. Like, even if you didn't use a Facebook account to do it, Oculus was still owned by Facebook, so they still had access to all the data that they wanted on you if they wanted to actually use it. So in my mind, this whole thing of requiring a Facebook login doesn't really affect me at all. What difference does it make in the long run anyway? One of the reasons Facebook is able to sell the Quest 2 at $299 in the first place is because they will take and use this data to try to monetize it, to try to sell you VR games that you truly love, both on the platform and off the platform. So just know that that's going to be happening if you get any kind of a Facebook product ever. Basically, they're going to try to utilize all the data they have on you to sell you stuff. Facebook's whole gambit here is that they're going to be able to utilize the data that they collect off the users to help subsidize the cost of the device, and then also turn and sell VR games from their app store to you to be able to, again, subsidize the cost of the device, because I don't think Facebook is making money on these devices at $300. They're probably just about cutting even, which is a very scary idea, from someone trying to develop and sell hardware. So they're basically relying on users to actually get the Quest 2 and then buy games from the App Store to counter the low cost of entry. Now, another hidden feature that a lot of people don't know about the Quest 2 is that you can side load apps using a app called Sidequest, which basically you take your headset and you hook it up to a actual PC, and then the PC basically can allow you to download lots of different apps, adjust settings that normally would be off limits, and even allow you to increase the graphics in some games, like turning on 90 Hz refresh rates. Now, overall, I've been playing the Quest for 1 to 3 or 4 hours a day, probably on average about 1.5 hours a day, primarily playing games that are both fun and also burn calories. They get my heart pumping, like Blast On, 11 Table Tennis, Until You Fall. There's lots of games out there, Beat Saber, Synthwave, Pistol Whip. There's so many games that burn calories and are so fun. I love this as a tool for staying in shape and burning calories, and especially in the middle of this pandemic, you can do really cool things all through the VR environment. Now, what are some cons for this device? First of all, the 72 Hz refresh rate on most games is not a problem, I think, for most games, but do know that some games play a lot better at 144 Hz refresh rate, like on the Valve Index. Like if you're playing a competitive first-person shooter like Onward or Pavlov, having 144 Hz refresh rate is going to give you a competitive advantage. You'll be able to react faster, and you're not going to get quite as much motion sickness when you're doing those fast reactions. Now, another con for the Quest 2 is that when I was trying to find the visual sweet spot, and the visual sweet spot for each person is a little bit different. So there's a couple different things. First of all, you need the headset the right distance from your face, and you need it to stay in that spot without, tilting forward or tilting backward or coming too close or sliding left and right, and then it starts looking awkward. So getting that just right sweet spot can be tricky on some headsets, especially depending on which strap you have. Now, I have just been using the default strap, but the key I've found to getting the best placement is, first of all, I put my head up to the Quest, then I pull the strap back. When you're initially trying to find the comfort point, you want to loosen this up and just kind of pull it out. Now you let the strap kind of relax backwards a bit. And the key is you want this front headset to be flush against your face. And you want to tighten this back strap, this horizontal strap. You want it to be able to basically situate it perfectly in the right spot. And once you've got it set to the right spot, then you tighten this up so that it's just taut. And then that is what keeps the Quest 2 in the perfect spot. And I can maintain this sweet spot basically indefinitely. And I really, really like it overall. It's been staying in the sweet spot better than the Quest 1 did, even though I got a third-party Halo strap here. This is a really nice head strap. Makes it more comfortable, arguably, because the pressure on your head goes around the top of your head rather than kind of mainly being on the front face of your head. That said, this doesn't quite stay perfectly in the sweet spot as often. Like, I kind of have to wiggle it around to make sure it stays in the sweet spot all the time, which can be a bit tricky. It's still not bad. Like, this still works pretty well. The main thing is the Quest 2 does have a better sweet spot once you figure out how to hit it consistently. Now, another key to clearly viewing VR content is how wide apart the lenses are. You want the lenses to be the right distance apart for your eyes so that you can look through the lenses clearly. And the trick with the Oculus Quest 2 is that they have a series of jump points, so you can go like wide, medium, and narrow. And I'm kind of in between two of the points. So initially, the IPD was not very good. But I found that if you hold the lenses carefully and move them gradually, you can get them to stay in between two of the jump points, which was crucial for me to have perfect IPD adjustment. So know that a lot of reviewers aren't really talking about this, but I've been able to get it to be an in-betweener. No problem. Overall, at $299, the Quest 2 is just such a great deal. I freaking love it. I can't recommend it enough to people. The games are so good in VR now. There's gonna be a game for sure that you're gonna love and you're gonna want to spend hours and hours and hours in it. I think the fact that this is even cheaper than the Quest 1 makes it an incredibly attractive offer. There's just so much you can do with the VR headset these days. You can watch Netflix or Amazon Prime. You can hang out with people watching movies. You can hang out with random people watching random movies. You can browse the web and watch YouTube VR. Overall, I'm really blown away by the Quest 2, and I think it's a must-have tech product for anyone that is interested in VR. So that's it for my review of the Oculus Quest 2. If you found it helpful, smack that like button. And if you want to see more of my tech reviews in the future, hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and mark it to all. I will see you in the next one. Brandon out.